Hello. This happened to me a few months ago. I just need to share it here with somebody. It all started at my friend's party. He's an artist who rented out a loft in the industrial part of town. If you can picture what a place like Detroit looked like back in the 1920s, that's what this area looks like. A bunch of old turn-of-the-century factories crammed into 10 blocks. Most of them abandoned. So I partied a little too hard that night and decided to crash on a couch at the loft. I woke up at around 4 a.m. The sun wasn't out yet, but you could still make things out in the dim blue light. I went to the bathroom, carefully tiptoeing around the people that were passed out on the floor. As I was taking a piss, I looked at the bathroom window and saw the panorama of deserted urban decay. I remembered how much I liked places like this. It was so dark and devoid of life and strangely serene. I went back to the couch and tried to fall asleep. After 45 minutes of staring at the ceiling, I decided I didn't want to be there any longer. So I swallowed my pride and decided to wake my girlfriend up and beg her for a ride. Since walking around the vacant streets at this time was not an option. Being an awesome girlfriend, she was totally cool with it. She told me she would be there in about a half hour and that she would give me a call when she was outside. My phone died 10 minutes later, so I decided I would try to sit by the window and watch for her car. I sat there for a while. Eventually my eyes started getting heavy and I began to doze off. A crashing noise outside woke me up. It wasn't loud, but enough to snap me back to reality. I looked out the window and scanned the area, but didn't see anything. However, across the street from the loft, near a mountain of garbage bags and one of those enormous dumpsters, I did see a computer monitor smashed against the floor that hadn't been there before. When my girlfriend arrived, I went downstairs and greeted her. Just as I was about to get in the car, I remembered a friend of mine who'd blown out his power supply. So I decided to walk over to the dumpster and see what I could salvage. The monitor was worthless, but the tower seemed to have suffered almost no damage. So I put it in the trunk and we drove off. About a week had passed and I'd completely forgotten about the tower, until my girlfriend called to let me know that it was still in the trunk and that she wanted it out. That night, I brought it home. Before I took it apart, I decided to hook it up to my monitor to see if it still worked. To my surprise, it did. It ran Windows XP and it looked like it had been wiped clean. I decided to do searches for words like tits and pussy in hopes of finding some secret stash full of weird, deviant porn the previous owner had forgotten about. A morbid curiosity, I guess, but my search came up with nothing. There were no picture files. Then I searched for movies and one came up. It was an AVI inside of a folder titled Barbie, hidden in the Windows System32 directory. So I played it. This is where it gets disturbing. The movie was an hour long and was made up of what seemed like raw, exported footage. The footage was of this woman sitting on a chair and talking against a white backdrop. I skipped through most of the movie, and it was all the same continuous shot. I decided to sit through the footage to find out what she was talking about. 15 seconds into it, the audio became extremely bad, and her voice was drowned in a harsh static/background noise. I couldn't make out a thing. I imported the footage into Final Cut and tried to mess with the levels to isolate her voice. It helped a little, but I still couldn't hear what she was saying. I was intrigued now and began to really pay attention to her face and body language. It seemed that she was being asked questions, because she stopped at times to listen, then continued talking. About 15 minutes into the footage, her face began to redden and contort, as if the questions were bothering her, but she continued to answer them anyway. Shortly after, she started to cry. She sobbed hysterically for the duration of the film. One of the few words I could lip read was skin. She repeated this word many times throughout the footage, and at one point she even pulled at the skin from her arm and mouthed the word. She seemed to be unhappy with it. It kept on building and building, and about 40 minutes in, she was crying so hard she could barely look at the camera. She stopped talking at this point. The rest of the footage was just her crying with her head down. Oddly enough, she didn't get up or move. The screen just faded to black. I was fucking dumbfounded. I played the whole thing through many times that night, trying to find inflections and nuances in her movement that would reveal anything else about what was going on. I felt so dissatisfied. I wanted to know more. That was when I noticed that there were about 10 more minutes left on the film timeline after the screen went black. 2 minutes past the darkness, there was more footage. The footage was extremely shaky, almost unwatchable, and depicted a pair of legs walking along train tracks. My guess is that camera was accidentally left on as it was being carried somewhere. The person in this video walked along the train tracks for about 6 minutes, then turned into the forest and walked over what looked like foliage, flattened by a piece of plywood. The person continued on this makeshift plywood road until the clip ended. My heart started beating with excitement, because there were train tracks a few miles away that looked very similar to the ones in the video. I had to check this out. I called up my friend Ezra. He's 6'4", 250 pounds of mostly muscle. I convinced him to go on a little adventure with me. But I felt if I was to go wandering in the woods looking for God knows what, some extra muscle couldn't hurt. The whole idea of investigating this video had me so excited that I couldn't sleep. The next morning on a sunny Saturday, I took my flashlight, camera, and a 7-inch Kabar knife with a matted black finish and serrated edge, and went to go pick up Ezra. When I got to his house, he wasn't even awake. When I woke him up, he pretty much told me to fuck off. I was already packed, and I had mentally prepared myself to do this, so I decided to go through it without him. I parked my car at the train station, took my stuff, and hopped onto the tracks. After walking for about 2 hours, I saw a broken piece of plywood, and my knees almost buckled with excitement. I searched the nearby foliage, and there it was! A little plywood trail leading off into the forest. I walked slowly along the trail, paying close attention to everything. I would stop occasionally, kneel down, and listen for anything or anyone. But it was so quiet. This was one of the most nerve-wracking things I'd ever done. I didn't know what to expect at the end of this trail. The dense tree line gave way to a little island of grassy field. And then I saw it. A house being consumed by the forest. From the look of it, no one had lived there for 20, maybe 30 years. I got my camera and snapped a few pics. A few yards away from the house was a tool shed made of rusty sheet metal. I just sat there among the trees for a while, absorbing everything. I didn't want to go into the open field. I had a bad feeling that something would see me. It took me a while to muster the courage to go up to the house. The door was partially opened. I pushed it in with the flashlight and was relieved that the inside was actually very well lit. I put the flashlight away, got my camera, and took a few more pics. There was no furniture. The floor was riddled with bricks, wood, and other rubble, and some of the walls had huge holes in them. When I went further in to explore, I saw some things that I didn't pay much mind to in the moment. But now that I think about them in hindsight, they greatly disturbed me. The first thing that seemed odd was that one of the doors in the first room that I presume led to the basement seemed a little too new to be in this house. It was also the only door that was locked. Also, when I made my way up to the second floor, I saw some chairs and a fold-up table that also seemed a little too new to be there. But what disturbed me the most was the bathroom. The dust on the mirror had been wiped away, and in the bathroom I saw a clear plastic tarp that still had water droplets on it from when I presume it was last washed clean. That was when I heard something moan really loud. I jumped the fuck out of the second-story window and ran back to the tracks. Halfway there I realized the moaning was most likely a water pipe expanding or contracting. That little moment of relief gave way to horror when I wondered why the water would be running in an abandoned house in the middle of the fucking woods. It's been a little more than 2 months since this happened, and I haven't gone back there, nor do I plan to. Ooh, that was nice. There are actually several videos that have looked into where the Barbie video itself came from. They're quite interesting. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for weekly episodes and tell us what you thought of the story in the comments below. And don't forget to like it if you liked it. If you have a story you want me to read, you can send me a link at boilsthecreepy@yahoo.com. If we really impressed you, there's a Ko-Fi link in the description. And we have t-shirts through Spreadshop. Finally, this channel is sponsored by W Energy Powder for Gamers. W is a focus energy drink that your taste buds will love. Their special formula delivers smooth focus with no jitters or crash, and made with no sugar, artificial colors, or dyes. Available in 10 plus flavors. And if you use the code TREBLOSKI10, you'll get 10% off your order. Who knows, maybe they'll make a flavor for me someday. My name is Boils, and this has been Creepy Puppet Reads Creepypasta. Check, please.